So I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm super excited, and I just wanted to give you a sneak peek of my book. So this is the proof, which is basically just the pre-published version of it that you get just to make sure it looks the way you thought it did. But because Create Space, which I'm doing this through, does a pretty good digital proof, I knew it was going to look all right. I just wanted to sort of see it on paper. So, but anyway, this is what it's going to look like. So it's got this great matte cover, and there's stuff on the back. So there's my pen name. I went back and forth on whether or not to use my real name or not, but a lot of folks here just know me as Tom Benjamin, and it felt right from a branding perspective. So this is what it looks like. Here's the table of contents. So it's broken up into sections. So the first section is probably the biggest. It's the first section is all about the pips and the chords. So I spend a long time talking about numerology, light and shadow, the elements, and then how we bring those things together with the context of the cards and the question to create kind of the math equation of a reading. So I spend a long time on the pips because I feel like that's the thing that actually does not get a lot of love in a lot of books. So, and then sprinkled throughout are these little interludes, which are really just sort of rests for you because a lot of it is so much about activities and sort of, doing practice activities around what the book teaches because they're all kind of lessons. So I threw these interludes in, and they're in italics in the table of contents. So I have one on the book itself is pretty geared towards a practical approach, but I wanted to start by addressing the fact that, I don't want to negate any relationship people have to a spiritual or magical relationship with tarot. I just wanted to add an element of practicality to it. So I talk about questions and ethics. I do a thing on intuition. I have two that I really like, one on being wrong and one on being right, and then on doubt and perfectionism and arrogance. So the lessons in the book go over numerology, light and shadow, the elements, putting all that together, working with questions. I go deep into the courts and how I work with them and how you can kind of ground them in real life. Then part two is all about the trumps. Part three is all about the visual language. So it's all about how the images work together. Now, this is designed primarily for pip decks, but as I say a couple times in the book, it really could be used with any kind of deck. But what we're focused on really is a little bit more of a cartomancy quality, a little bit more of the kind of readings that are, I don't want to use the term fortune telling, but they're a little bit more about answering banal questions, a little bit less about answering sort of spiritual, although certainly you could use them in that way. And then the final part is putting all of this together. And then in the appendix, I list kind of my basic meanings for the trumps, some books and websites and decks that I think work well for this. I've got my little thank yous and my epigrams, and then it gets right into it. So I'm super excited. So the introduction kind of explores how I got into tarot, the theme and the way that this book works, the sources that I used. It says tarot, a quick tarot history, and it's super quick. It's like, here's what I think you absolutely need to know for this to make sense. And here we go. And there's how the book looks. It's black and white, but I think even with that, the Marshmallow Marseille looks so beautiful. So here we talk about how numerology works, and I'm not telling you what the numbers mean in this book. I'm creating activities that will help you discover. And then we take that to the next level so you get the number, the meaning of the number, and then you get the number in light and shadow. And lesson 2 is all about how you connect light and shadow aspects to the numbers. And then I give you my examples so that you can see what I had. But again, I don't list those as right or wrong. I list them as examples for you to compare, and also so you know how I'm sort of landing on the answers that I have. So here's one of the interludes. And again, these are just meant to be rests because a lot of this is activities that you're going to be doing. So then once we get to the number and the light and shadow, we go into sort of the connection between the number and the element. So we go through that in lesson 3. And then lesson 4 is sort of putting all of those things together into what I call sort of math in quotation marks. So the idea of number plus element plus context plus question gives you the meaning. And I talk about how to practice that. And so there's charts in here for you to fill in and work with. I talk about questions early on because I think that's important. And then in lesson 5, we actually talk about questions and contexts. So, you know, you can say, I won't go through the whole thing. Lesson 6 is all about the chords. And what I actually do in the chords section to help sort of strip away a lot of what's been assigned to the chords over the years that makes them hard to read is I actually created an imaginary chord card called the Journeyman. And I talk about let's strip away everything. Let's just say we have this word, this position, this job essentially, what, you know, here's what it means and here's what it suggests in modern life and here's what that might mean in a reading. So what I try to do with the chords in particular is sort of really address the things that a lot of us have struggled with, which is what, you know, how do they connect to modern life, and how, what, you know, how do I know when it's a person, how do I know when it's someone else, when it's the person I'm reading for, you know, what does a king mean when I'm reading about a relationship or a job, you know what I mean? So it's about kind of grounding. The whole theme really is about grounding the tarot in the life we're living today. So, yeah, so that's part 1. And then I talk about intuition. We get into the trumps. So I did this layout myself, and I'm pretty proud of it given the fact that I'm not a graphic designer. You know, it's not perfect, but for first go, I think it's pretty good. It's not bad. You know, I will say this, it was edited twice, but things get missed, so I'm, you know, just straight up, I've already seen a typo in here, so there will be some of that, but you know, it's human, and if you let me know if you find them, I can actually update it relatively quickly for future buyers. So yeah, so today is November 20th. This is going to be available by the end of this week on Amazon. And then I have some copies of this that will be shipped to me that I'm going to sell in my Etsy shop, which I will sign and sell for, you know, just slightly more because I have to pay for shipping myself. So that's the book. I'm super excited. So I hope this is a little interesting sneak peek. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with everybody because, you know, this was a labor of love. I really want to share with you my experience, and, you know, it's not to negate anyone else's experience. It's not to say that I know more or that I'm better. It's just here's what I wish I had in the years where I was learning what I learned, and let me share with you something, you know. So it's designed for people who are new to tarot, and it's designed for people who want to add a layer of practicality to their practice. So that's why it's called Tarot on Earth, and I love this picture. So really excited. So be good. I'll talk to you soon.